I went to a small Appalachian town a few months ago to research local folklore. I'm a freelance journalist, and I thought it'd be a good chance to find some interesting stories. The town felt like stepping back in time. Old wooden homes and narrow roads made it quaint. I rented a cabin on the outskirts. I'd been alone in the woods before, but something felt off about this place. On my first morning, I went to the local diner for breakfast. I overheard an elderly man at the counter. He was telling a story about a festival. He said people would disappear during it only to come back changed, quiet. I chuckled a bit at that, thinking it was just local folklore, but I wrote it down in my notepad. After breakfast, I walked around town. I wanted to ask people about the festival. It was strange how they would just stop talking when I mentioned it. Their eyes darted away. I felt like I'd struck a nerve. The more I pressed, the more uncomfortable they became. Maybe they didn't want to revisit some old memories, but something didn't sit right with me. As the sun went down, I ventured deeper into the woods. I felt the trees closing in around me. The air turned cold, and my breath hung in the chilly air. Then I saw a flash of movement, but when I turned, no one was there. I told myself it was just my imagination running wild. That night, I returned to my cabin. I noticed strange markings on the trees. They weren't random scratches, they seemed almost deliberate, forming shapes. A chill crept over me. I looked around, my heart racing. I was alone, or so I thought. The next day I tried again to get the townspeople to open up. I met a woman at the market. The moment I mentioned the festival, she glanced at me and hurried away. I almost chased after her, but something stopped me. Maybe I should leave it alone for a while. I started second-guessing everything. I took long walks into the woods again. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. I stumbled upon a clearing. There, at the center, was a strange old tree. It was twisted and gnarled, and I felt drawn to it. I reached out to touch it, but suddenly, I felt the urge to turn back. That night I heard sounds outside my cabin. Was it whispering? It felt like the woods were alive. My heart raced. I checked the door. Nothing was there. I thought about the old man's story. Was there truth in what he said? Then I saw a figure standing in the distance. Maybe it was the man from the diner. I couldn't tell. I blinked, and he seemed to melt away. The cold crept back in. I turned back to my cabin, wishing I'd kept my distance. I asked aloud, "Who's there?" The woods remained silent. I woke up the next morning feeling drained. The whispers from the night still echoed in my mind. It was clear I had to get out of the cabin and back to town. I needed answers. Maybe if I confronted some of those town folks again, I'd uncover more about that festival. At the diner, I found a few locals gathered, their voices low. I took a seat at a booth in the corner, hoping to blend in. I ordered a strong coffee. The waitress gave me a wary glance but said nothing. I tried to listen in on their conversation, but every time I leaned closer, they hushed. It felt like they were hiding something important. Instead of waiting for them to come to me, I decided to approach the man I had overheard before. He was sitting at the counter, fiddling with an empty coffee cup. I walked over, my heart racing. "Excuse me, sir," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I heard you talking about the festival. Can you tell me more about it?" The man froze, his hands tightening around the cup. Slowly he turned to me and fear flashed in his eyes. "You're not from here, are you?" he said finally, his voice trembling. "No, I'm just doing some research," I replied, not backing down. He glanced around, then leaned in closer. "Listen, kid. There are things you don't understand. Things that happen during the festival. It's not just stories. People go missing, and when they come back, they're not the same." I felt a chill. "What do you mean?" Before he could respond, the door swung open. A strong gust of wind rushed in, making my coffee ripple. In walked a woman dressed in a long, dark coat, the hood pulled low over her face. Everyone in the diner went quiet, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and expectation. I turned back to the man, but he was gone, slipping out the side door. Panic thrummed in my chest. I looked at the woman, who was now at the counter, ordering something in a hushed tone. The air felt thick around her, I decided to leave before things got any weirder. As I stepped out, I caught a glimpse of the woman again. She was staring at me, her gaze piercing. I hurried down the street, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping over me. Back at the cabin, I rifled through my notes, desperate for clarity. I found the old man's story about the festival. I realized I needed to dig deeper. I needed to find out more about the disappearances, about what happened to the people who returned. But where could I start? That night I ventured back into the woods, compelled to find the old tree again. With each step I felt the shadows closing in, whispering secrets I wasn't meant to hear. My flashlight beam flickered as a sudden gust of wind howled through the branches. Then I saw it. The strange markings on the trees were now illuminated before me in the light. They pulsed with an eerie glow, drawing me closer. My heart raced, and dread filled my stomach. As I reached out to touch one of the symbols, everything went dark. I jolted awake, gasping for breath. My heart pounded in my chest, and I was drenched in sweat. It took me a second to realize I was still in the cabin. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the remnants of whatever just happened. The darkness hung heavy around me, but I could still see the symbols on the tree through my flickering flashlight. Dread washed over me as I remembered the last moment before everything went black. My hand was still stretched out, hovering over one of the symbols. I pulled back as if it burned me. I needed to know more, but the sensation of impending doom weighed me down. I took a breath and tried to steady myself. The flashlight flickered uncertainly and I switched it off to conserve the battery. I needed to think. Those markings weren't random. They were connected to the festival, to the stories. I had to uncover their meaning. Just as I turned to leave, a rustling sound snapped me back to the present. My instincts kicked in, and I scanned the shadows around me. Something was out there. I strained to listen, my ears catching faint whispers, almost musical in their cadence. Fear surged through me. I couldn't tell if it was the wind or something else entirely. Feeling trapped, I pushed forward, trying to make it back to my cabin. But the path I thought I knew felt different in the dark. The trees loomed taller. The shadows stretched wider. Glancing back, I half expected to see something, or someone, pursuing me. But there was only silence. Finally, I got back to the cabin, slamming the door behind me. The night pressed against the walls and I locked everything tight. I desperately searched for a distraction. My notes from the diner were sprawled on the table, but they felt useless now. I needed more information. Just then a heavy thud echoed outside. My breath caught in my throat. I moved toward the window, peering out into the blackness. There was nothing unusual to see, just the gnarly trees and the night sky. But I couldn't shake the sense that I was being watched. I remembered the waitress from the diner. Maybe she could help me. If I returned to town first thing in the morning, I might get the answers I needed. The thought of facing the townsfolk again sent a shiver down my spine. But I had to. As I turned away from the window, the sudden sound of scratching froze me in place. It came from the door, persistent and frantic. I felt a lump in my throat. I barely whispered, "Who's there?" The scratching stopped. An uncomfortable pause settled in before a voice rang out, raspy and low. "Let me in." I stumbled back from the door. The voice was too familiar, yet distorted. "What do you want?" I managed to choke out. "Help me," it pleaded. The sound of something clawing at the wood sent waves of panic through my body. In that moment, I realized this was no ordinary encounter. Whatever was outside wasn't just a lost soul. It was something far worse. My hand hovered over the doorknob, heart racing. I had to decide quickly. Then a flash of movement caught my eye. Something dark darted past the window. Fear coursed through me as I took a step back, feeling the room close in around me. I needed to know what was happening, but there was no turning back now. The scratching resumed, louder this time, more desperate. I could feel the wall behind me pressing in, suffocating. "Go away," I shouted, a mix of terror and stubbornness spilling out. But my voice cracked and I felt a flutter of doubt. Maybe it was a trick. Maybe I should just open the door and see. No. I wasn't ready for whatever waited outside. The night outside creaked and groaned, the wind picking up, almost mocking my fear. I tried to focus on the symbols again, forcing the echoes of that earlier encounter from my mind. I grabbed my notes from the table, flipping through them until my fingers found the page where I sketched the markings I had seen on the tree. "What do you mean?" I whispered to myself, my voice a small comfort in the stifling silence. The door rattled again. "Please," the voice begged. "You need to help." The insistence in its tone made my resolve crumble like dry leaves underfoot. But what if it was using my curiosity against me? Just when I thought I couldn't bear it any longer, I heard another sound, a thumping from the roof. My heart raced. Someone, or something, had climbed onto the cabin. My mind went wild with scenarios. Was it the same entity I'd felt outside or something new? Dare I peek outside? I had to know. I forced myself closer to the window. As I drew back the curtain, the dim light outside illuminated the figure on the roof. It was hunched over, head bowed, obscured by shadows. I leaned in, squinting to see better. That was when it lifted its head, and the light caught its eyes, glowing almost too bright for the night. I stumbled back. A shriek caught in my throat. The eyes bore into mine. Panic surged again, and I backed away from the window. I had to get out of here. My mind was racing. Maybe I could escape through the back. I moved toward the door, but hesitated. What about the voice? "Help me!" The voice faltered, desperation lacing the notes now. For a brief moment I thought about unlocking the door, but the figure on the roof shifted, drawing closer to the edge. No safety lay outside my cabin. I felt trapped in a nightmare from which I couldn't wake. Then I heard it, a low growl, not from the roof but from behind me. I turned. Someone stood in the shadows of the cabin, just out of reach of the flickering light. "You've found the tree, haven't you?" Another voice, much clearer, felt cold against my skin. A mix of fear and instinct told me to run, but something else held me in place. I was not alone, and it was not just in the cabin. That's when I saw it. I breathed, the realization chilling me to the bone. More eyes watching, waiting from the dark corners of my new reality. There was no escape. I had just stepped into something far bigger than myself, and the festival's secrets were about to unfold. I wanted to scream, to bolt out the door, to anything but face the growing darkness around me. The figure in the shadows shifted again, the light catching another glimpse of its face. I could make out sharp, angular features, a twisted smile that did not belong to any human being. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing louder as I fought the urge to run. "What do you want?" I managed to say, my voice trembling. "They know you're here," it said, the words slithering through the air. "The festival is calling to you, you must listen." The tension in the room was suffocating. I glanced back at the window, and the glowing eyes still watched from the roof. It felt like a game of cat and mouse, except I was the mouse and my options were limited. "You're making a mistake by hiding," the voice continued, stepping closer. "The truth can't be ignored." A chill ran down my spine. I had no clue if I was dealing with a threat or a promise. "What truth?" I breathed, stalling for time while my desperately racing mind sought an escape strategy. "About the tree. The symbols. They link us all," it answered, its voice a low hiss. "You need to embrace it. Only then will you understand." The creature's words rattled me. What did it mean by link us all? The symbols I'd sketched were more than complex markings. They were a connection, a summons, and I had followed them here, drawn by some invisible force. The scratching at the door persisted, relentless. "Help me." The voice outside was still pleading, sounding more urgent than before. But I didn't trust it. If one entity was tying me to this place, what could the other want? Just as I was about to ask the figure in shadows about the connection, the roof creaked ominously. It was a fresh reminder of the creature waiting above. I had to decide. "If you want me to understand, show me," I blurted, my words spilling out before I could stop them. For a heart-stopping moment the figure froze, then took a step back. A crooked grin spread across its face. "So eager. You'll need to prepare," it said. "Prepare?" My mind raced. What did that mean? A part of me wanted to say I was done, to back away and shut it all out. But curiosity clawed at me. I wanted to unveil the truth behind the festival, the secrets hidden in this twisted place. The figure pointed toward the back door of the cabin. You'll find more answers out there, but beware. The festival favors those who are brave, not those who fear. Before I could react, it disappeared into the shadows, leaving me alone once more. The scratching intensified now, as if something was desperate to break through. I took a deep breath and steadied my racing heart. The night was thick with tension, and I sensed I was running out of time. With a quick glance at the doorway, I tiptoed around the table toward the back exit. Then, without warning, the lights flickered and everything plunged into darkness. Thick, stifling blackness swallowing the cabin whole. Panic surged. I felt my pulse quicken, the cold air heavy on my skin. My hand trembled as I reached for the door, desperate to uncover what lay waiting outside. I pushed the door open and was immediately met with a rush of cold air that sent a shiver down my spine. The darkness outside was thick, but the faint glow of distant fires flickered on the tree line. The festival was alive, its resonance beckoning me with an almost magnetic pull. I took a tentative step into the night, my senses heightened. My heart raced. Just go, I urged myself, squinting against the murky shadows. I stepped off the porch, feeling the rough, uneven ground beneath my feet. Every rustle of leaves and distant murmur sent my nerves into overdrive. The urgency to run fought against the curiosity to discover what awaited me. I approached the edge of the wooded area, where the glow intensified, dancing like will-o'-the-wisps. It was mesmerizing and terrifying all at once. I hesitated, picturing the figure in the cabin, its sinister grin. It felt like it was watching. "Help me!" The voice broke through the night again, unmistakably pleading, and I froze. It came from somewhere deeper in the trees. My instincts screamed to turn back, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was part of whatever was unfolding. As I moved cautiously forward, I spotted something on the ground, a series of symbols etched into the soil, the same markings I had seen before. My pulse quickened again. This couldn't be a coincidence. They pulsed softly under the moonlight, almost calling me closer. I knelt to get a better look, the edges of each symbol glowing faintly in the darkness. "Why do they feel so familiar?" I whispered to myself, tracing one with my fingers. Suddenly, the earth beneath my hand trembled, as if responding to my touch. A low rumble echoed through the night, and I jerked back in shock. "Is this what you meant?" I whispered, feeling dread building in my chest. Were these symbols supposed to connect me to whatever entity lurked nearby? I pushed the thought away. If tapping into these markings meant exposing myself to danger, then it might be wiser to leave them alone. But as I glanced back toward the cabin, the desperation in that voice pierced through my hesitation. I took a deep breath and called out, "Who's there?" The only answer was silence, and my heart raced louder than before, drowning out the sounds of the world around me. Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows, a silhouette cloaked in darkness. My stomach dropped. Was this the voice crying for help, or was this another trap? "Please," it said softly, its tone almost comforting. "You have to help me. They need you." I squinted into the dim light, and as the figure stepped closer, my stomach twisted. I could see its face now. A familiar one, but twisted in a way that sent a chill down my spine. It was an outline of someone I'd lost, reshaped in the shadows. Before I could react, a loud crash smashed through the silence. Something large crashed into the nearby trees in the direction of the festival sounds. My heart raced again, and in that moment, I knew I was at a crossroads. Would I confront whatever was hunting me or scramble back to the safety of the cabin? I glanced back at the figure, but when I looked again, it was gone, swallowed by the night. I had no choice. The festival was calling, and I had to answer it, whether I was ready or not. The sounds of the festival grew louder as I stepped deeper into the woods, the cacophony of laughter and drums mingling with my anxiety. Each step felt heavy, as if the ground was trying to pull me back, but I pressed on. The urge to uncover the truth pushed me forward, even as doubt gnawed at my mind. The glow ahead pulsed more brightly now, illuminating a patch in the forest. I could see figures dancing beyond the trees, shrouded in flickering light and shadows. But as I moved closer, everything seemed to fade. No laughter, no music. An uneasy silence enveloped me. I stopped, straining to make sense of the sudden change. Then I noticed them. Around me, trees leaned in, their branches twisting like gnarled fingers reaching toward the shadows. I could swear I heard whispers, faint yet insistent. They felt so familiar, pulling at my memories, reminding me of something I couldn't quite grasp. I tried to shake off the feeling, but uneasiness settled in my bones. "Help me." The voice echoed in my mind again, stronger this time and urgent. I looked around, heart racing. Had I imagined it? Was something actually there? I took another step, compelled by fear and curiosity alike. Ahead, a clearing opened up, revealing a small group encircled around a fire. They wore strange masks, their features obscured, their eyes glinting with excitement or something more sinister. My instincts screamed at me to turn back. But then, I caught sight of something. The same symbols from the cabin. They were drawn in the dirt, leading right to the heart of the gathering. I hesitated. Should I approach? But the urge to find answers outweighed the need to retreat. I took another step forward, trying to listen through the pounding of my heart. I felt a pull, almost magnetic, pulling me closer to the fire and the figures beyond it. Suddenly a figure broke away from the group and stepped toward me. It was tall and thin, its movements fluid, yet unnatural. I squinted through the shadows, attempting to discern its features. The figure tilted its head, the mask giving it an eerie, exaggerated appearance. "You've come," it said, voice dripping with a melodic charm. "We've been waiting for you." "Who are you?" I managed to ask, but my voice wavered. "The Chosen One," it replied, its tone chilling. "We need your help to turn the tide." "I don't understand," I stammered, wanting desperately to run. Just then the ground shook again, more violently this time, and the figures around the fire erupted into a disjointed dance. I stumbled backward, watching the chaos unfold. The energy shifted. The air crackled with something dark. In my retreat, I caught a glimpse of the symbols again. They glowed fiercely beneath my gaze, and I remembered tracing one of them before. That trembling earth, that sense of connection. It was all intertwined. I turned to flee, but something blocked my path. A presence loomed in the darkness behind me. I felt its weight pressing down, like a storm on the horizon. In that moment, my instincts kicked in. I had to get out, but before I could run, I heard the figure whisper one last time, "You cannot escape what calls to you." Then everything went black. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me, feeling the weight of the moment press down on my chest. My heart raced, pounding in my ears like a distant drum. I blinked rapidly, trying to adjust to the pitch black around me. The whispers faded into nothing, but the energy from the fire lingered, a ghost pressing against my skin. Slowly, light began to filter back in. I was lying on the forest floor, disoriented and cold. The fire was gone, and so were the figures. All that remained was a stillness broken only by the rustling of leaves overhead. I scrambled to my feet, the chill of the ground seeping into my bones. Where were they? Had I been dreaming? But then I spotted something in the dirt, the symbols. They glimmered faintly just as they had before, though the fire that once illuminated them was now just a memory. I traced one with my fingers. My skin tingled, and for a moment, I felt warmth, like a soft pulse beneath my touch. Then I remembered the figure. The Chosen One. The words haunted me. What did that mean? I shook my head, trying to clear the confusion that wrapped around me like mist. I had to get back to the cabin. I needed answers. I turned to head back, feeling the urge to escape the woods. But as I stepped away from the clearing, the trees loomed closer, their branches swaying as if alive. An image flashed in my mind. The mask, twisted and grotesque, with those glinting eyes. The thought sent a shiver through me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Just then, A snap echoed in the underbrush to my right. I froze, holding my breath. The woods felt heavy with expectation. I glanced behind me, half expecting to see the masked figure emerging from the darkness. The air tightened around me, and my instincts screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. Then I heard it again, a voice familiar yet distant. "Help me." "Who are you?" I called out, trying to mask my fear. "Show yourself." Silence hung in the air, thick and suffocating. But then a shadow broke through the trees, stumbling toward me. It was a girl, wild-eyed and clutching her arm, as if she had just escaped from something terrible. Her clothes were torn and dirt smudged her face, but she looked familiar. "Please," she gasped, her breath coming in frantic bursts. "They're coming. We have to leave." The urgency in her voice pulled at me. "Who?" I pressed, my mind racing. "What do you mean?" "Those who wear masks. They're not human. They want to take you back." Just then a rustling filled the air, growing closer with every heartbeat. I glanced back, instinctively grabbing the girl's arm. "We need to hide." As we ducked behind a thicket, I could see shadows moving between the trees, the faint outlines of figures carrying torches. Panic clawed at my throat. Then, one of them paused, scanning the area with a deliberate slowness. And in that moment I felt it, the weight of countless eyes on me, piercing through the darkness. I was trapped, and I didn't know how much longer I could hold on. My heart raced as I squeezed myself and the girl into the thicket. I could hear them now, their low, guttural murmurs slipping through the trees, a strange chant that made my skin crawl. I pressed my back against the cool bark, straining to breathe quietly. "Why are they after you?" I whispered, glancing at her. The girl looked more frightened than I felt, her eyes darting wildly as if she expected the masked figures to materialize at any moment. "I heard things I wasn't supposed to," she replied, her voice trembling. "They want to silence me. They think I know where the chosen one is." Her breath quickened, and I sensed the urgency in her words. I had to keep her calm. "They think I'm the one," I muttered, the realization hitting me like a sudden chill. "I can't be. I don't know anything." "They'll try to take you," she insisted, her grip tightening on my arm. "If they find you, something terrible will happen." The quiet of the woods shattered as one of the figures stepped closer, their torch illuminating the underbrush with a flickering light. I caught a glimpse of their mask, smooth and cold, with hollow eye sockets that seemed to search the night for hidden prey. I recoiled, instinctively pulling the girl closer. "Please," she begged again, her voice raw. "We have to move. We can't stay here." My mind raced with questions. What did she mean by the chosen one? Why was I a target? I wanted to scream for answers, but the shadows loomed heavy, demanding silence. Then, without thinking, I made a decision. "Follow me," I whispered. "We'll move toward the river. It's the only way we can escape." She nodded, adrenaline coursing through us as we slowly crept away from our hiding spot. We ducked low, trying to avoid the light of the torches, inching our way through the underbrush. The rustling grew louder behind us, and I could feel the tick-tick of their footsteps, methodical and relentless. Panic surged in my chest. I glanced back and saw two figures moving closer, their eyes reflecting the flickering glow from the torches. Suddenly the girl stumbled, hitting the ground hard. My heart sank as I quickly knelt beside her. "Get up," I urged frantically, glancing over my shoulder. Their whispers were sharper now, filled with a sense of urgency mixed with hunger. "I can't," she panted, pain etched on her face. "My ankle. I think I twisted it." "I need you to push through it," I said, taking her arm. "We have to get to the river." With sheer force of will, I helped her to her feet. We began to move again, limping towards the sound of rushing water that felt both like hope and danger. But as we broke through the last of the trees, that hope faded. The riverbank was illuminated by strange lights. More figures were waiting for us. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline pumping furiously. And then, as I turned to grab the girl, my gaze locked with one of the masked figures standing before us. In that moment, I understood. They weren't just here for us. They had something else in mind. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. The ground beneath us began to rumble, and I realized the river was rising, threatening to overflow. Someone had unleashed something dark. "Get to the water," I yelled, despite the fear clenching my gut. I grabbed the girl's hand as we sprinted towards the river, not knowing what awaited us but praying that it was a way out. As we reached the riverbank, the night's chaos seemed to reach a breaking point. The masked figures were gaining on us, their chants swelling into a frantic roar. The water glimmered under an eerie light, pulsating as if it were breathing. I felt the girl's grip tightening around my hand, her face a mixture of fear and determination. "Jump in," I shouted, pushing her toward the edge. The water felt icy as I plunged into it, dragging her with me. We plunged below the surface, the cold wrapping around us like a shroud. My chest tightened, fighting against panic as I kicked my legs, desperate to break through. Breaking the surface, I gasped for air, flailing slightly until I regained my bearings. We could neither see the masked figures nor hear their chants. The water swirled around us, muffling the horrors on the shore. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I swam, urging the girl to stay close. "Don't stop," I yelled over the sound of splashing water. "We have to get downstream," she nodded, determination replacing the pain etched on her face. Together, we pushed through the water, the current strong but the threat behind us greater. I could feel the tug of the river, dragging us along as it whispered truths I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. We kicked harder, every stroke demanding more energy, more willpower. Just as we reaching a bend in the river, I glanced back. The figures stood at the water's edge, their silhouettes warped in the churn of the river. Their chanting had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that wrapped around me like a creeping fog. But their eyes, those hollow, haunting eyes, still glowed, reflecting some unknown malevolence. We were slipping away, but something in the back of my mind whispered that it wasn't over. The girl was beside me, shoulders heaving as we swam. "We need to get out of the water before they find another way." I turned my focus back to the current, spotting a curve in the riverbank that led up towards a small shore littered with stones and trees. "There," I directed her as I propelled us toward it. "We can make it." Reaching the bank, we clambered out of the water, panting and shivering. I looked around, scanning our surroundings. The woods were dark, imbued with an unsettling quiet that felt like a pause before chaos. The girl leaned against a tree, rubbing her ankle. "We can't stay here long," she said, breathless. I nodded, adrenaline still firing through me. "We need to find somewhere safe." But where would that be? I thought of the cabin, the marks on the trees, the festival. The questions swirled in my mind. What power had drawn me to this place? Suddenly a rustling sound broke through the silence, and I turned sharply. The masked figures were incoming, this time flanking us. They moved swiftly, gliding through the trees, the moonlight reflecting eerily off their twisted masks. "Run!" I shouted, inching backward toward the tree line. We took off again, the night alive with low growls, the limbs of the trees swaying ominously. The path through the woods twisted, and every step felt heavier than the last. I could hear whispering again, familiar, chilling. The very woods seemed alive with the threat, each breath of wind a taunt. Then we stumbled upon a clearing. Its size bewildered me. The ground spread wide and empty, echoing the forgotten energy of the festival. And in the center, the old tree stood, gnarled and twisted, just as I'd seen before. The girl staggered slightly, looking back nervously. "What is this place?" she murmured. I think this might hold some answers," I replied, hesitantly stepping towards the tree. I was drawn, the symbols on its trunk whispering truths I didn't want to face. Just as I got close, the air changed. The whispers escalated, and the masked figures emerged from the shadows encircling us. Their presence felt oppressive, as if the very atmosphere tightened around us. I turned to the girl, the grip of dread tightening my chest. "We have to stand together, whatever is happening. We need to embrace it." Before she could respond, one masked figure stepped forward, its voice a low hiss. "You come to us, chosen one. The festival calls for your acceptance." I steeled myself, uncertainty battering my resolve. What do you want from us? They must choose, the voice continued, echoing through the clearing. Dive into the truth or remain obscured by fear. Join the circle or depart this world. The girl looked up at me, confusion dancing in her eyes. What does that mean? I didn't know. In that moment, the weight of the decision loomed larger than anything I'd ever faced. The festival, the darkness, the voices, the undeniable pull they had on me. It was real, wrapped in the very fabric of this land. Then, in the tension of that moment, the ground rumbled beneath us. The tree quivered, and the symbols lit up fiercely, blindingly illuminating the clearing. I grabbed the girl's hand. I can't do this alone, I shouted, desperate for her understanding, but I still felt that powerful call. We face it together, she replied fiercely, squeezing my hand tighter. The masked figures turned toward us, waiting, anticipating. And just when I felt we could drown in fear, I realized what I had to do. I'm not leaving without the truth, I declared, my voice resonating with newfound strength. In that moment, I pushed forward, the girl by my side, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. Together, we stepped toward the old tree, diving into the beating heart of the festival, prepared for whatever would come next. And then, everything went dark. I sat up suddenly, gasping as daylight filled my vision. The cabin loomed before me unchanged, an ordinary day settling back in. I listened intently, searching for the whispers, the chant from the night before, the masked figures, but they were gone. I was alone. My heart pounded as memories flooded back, faces, voices. Had it been a nightmare, or was it something more? The shadows still lingered in the corners of my mind, unanswered and haunting. I touched my notes, flipping through the pages, the symbols still there, glowing faintly in my memory. And just beneath the surface of my thoughts, I could feel the pulse of the festival, waiting. I moved to the window and stared into the woods, shadows dancing at the periphery of my vision. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if that town is still there, if the festival still calls to the brave. But mostly I try not to think about it.